like to call this budget meeting to order. And our first order of business today is to elect a new chairman. So, with that being said, Robbie, we're going to turn the meeting over to you. Do we have a volunteer to be chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I volunteer as the chairman.
I'll second.
I know I done a crummy job last year, but maybe we need to do better this year. So I'll support anybody that wants the job.
Joe?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Jerry White to be chair.
There you go. I'll second.
We'll help you all we can.
Any more discussion? Any more nominees? Any more volunteers? With that being said then, all in favor of me being chairman again?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, and I would like to add one more item to the agenda, number 38, if I can get that motion also.
Add a new item, number 38.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, it's added.
All right, so we have a cash and fund balance report for the first time in a while. It's still unaudited, but it's, I think it's in pretty good shape. So anyway, our unassigned fund balance is at 6.7 million, and our cash in general fund is 8.1 million. The cash is up 2.4 million from last September, and the unassigned fund balance at 6.78 million is at 2.8 months of operating cost.
2 point what month?
8 months, almost 3 months.
Okay. And we need to be at 3 months, correct?
That would be good, but we need to be over 4 million, which we're over right now. Now, this could change. I mean, if we have any audit adjustments, I mean, it could go up or down, but
You know, I find it so odd at my house. I deal in hundreds of dollars and come up here for a few minutes and we deal in millions. It's any discussions on our cash and fund balance? Do we need a motion to accept that, or is it
no,
just
it's
fact?
just information.
Okay.
Okay. The first items on the agenda are the consent agenda, pages 1 through 5.
Has everybody looked at the consent? Got a motion and a second. We do it as a group.
I have a question.
Ms.
Sure.
Teresa.
Kim, is she here? Kim.
Yes.
You've got a request where you're moving $1,000 for office supplies from data processing equipment. You said that you're looking, the remaining $900 in the equipment line is to be used for backup equipment?
Possibly. Brian and I have still got to sit down and discuss that yet. We would need to make that purchase probably in January. It will be for the NeoGov system, where we're utilizing that for the employees' e-forms and onboarding. But we need to have some type of backup for that. Brian and I have briefly discussed it, but it's not been in detail. We're going to wait. He's been a little busy.
Middle of when?
We hope to have that plan in place by January, but Brian's been a little busy recently, so we've not really went in depth with our discussion. But that's why the $900 is sitting there.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussions on 1 through 5? Motion to approve?
So moved.
I'm sorry, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody disapprove? Motion carries.
Okay, 6 through 13 are transfers and appropriations from the school department.
Need a second.
Second.
Everybody looked at them, or you want to take a minute to look at them? Take your time.
I have a question for the schools. On page 12, You're asking to make an increase of $19,200 for educational incentives.
Correct.
You said that the transfer is required to provide for monthly employee incentives for perfect attendance. What period of time is this for?
For the fiscal year.
It's for the year?
Yeah, each month, the way that works is that each month, we submit a list to the secretary of people that have had perfect attendance for that month. It's an incentive for attendance, perfect attendance for that month. And then what happens is they put those in the hopper, and at the board meeting, or at the budget meeting, the board members draw out a name. And that person gets each one draws out a name. They get a $200 incentive.
But what I'm asking is that the $19,000, that's for the year for this program?
That's for the entire year, yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is number 13 included in this group?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard, number 13 is an additional $6,000
Yeah.
to be transferred to meet psychologists' salaries.
Correct.
What happened to it being in the budget to begin with?
The salaries were in the budget to begin with.
Right.
But what has happened is that the state is they're making a distinction between indirect and direct support, indirect and direct costs. For instance, the educational costs are direct, and it's not quite that simple, but so we're having to actually move some people over into indirect. In addition to that, we weren't totally complete with our hiring, so that could be part of it too.
So do I take it that whomever was hired, their salary?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. Could have been a couple things.
Okay.
One thing is, it could have just been the fact that we needed an additional person because of the way the enrollment went. The enrollment wasn't complete until probably October the 1st, as far as settling down to where we knew who we had where. And so the requirements could have changed.
All right, thank you.
I hope everybody understood that. The more I listened, the less I understood of it, but I appreciate your,
Very complicated system.
yeah.
Well, when you said state, that kind of took things like where it needed to go.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on 6 through 13? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, number 4 is appropriation from the sheriff.
Got a motion? Got a motion and a second. Discussion?
I'd like Tyler to come up and elaborate on this.
Come up, Tyler, and elaborate a little
Please.
bit.
The amount that you see there is,
$4,827.20.
yeah, so we have a task force officer employed by the sheriff's office who is assigned to the U.S. Marshals. And what we did is put lights and some equipment into his assigned vehicle that the marshals pay for. We paid for the equipment up front, and what this is 100% reimbursement from the federal government. It went into a revenue code, and so we're putting that back into our law enforcement equipment code.
Back to the equipment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well done.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, our next group is from the library board, appropriations 15, pages 15 through 17. The first.
Got a motion?
Second.
As a group, 15, 16, and 17. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Highway Department, is Mr. Long here?
Thought I saw him sneak in.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Mr. Long, you asked for a lot of money.
So you want to move $500,000 for asphalt. Where are you going to be asphalting?
We've got 4 or 5 roads prepared for, over
Hopefully we'll do some in the Frost Bottom area and then some over in Claxton District.
Are you filling
Addition.
potholes?
Most quite often, but yeah, no, we're paving the roads.
You said that's Frost Bottom area?
Yeah, a minute.
Dutch Valley get any of that?
No, sir. That's a capital, no, sir. No, sir. That's a bad question.
Mr. Bob?
Yes, sir.
I see a comment that says it has potential for a permanent increase.
Pardon me?
Potential for a permanent increase, is that right? That's what it's,
It just shows it as an increase in asphalt code for this particular year, yes, sir.
His state here has potential to be permanent increase. That's what he was asking.
Okay. That's next, well, no, it just depends on the funding. Hopefully if our capital outlay goes the way we wish, we could increase it that's permanently, yes. Additional capital outlays, I understand.
Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Okay, the next two appropriations from solid waste from Jeff DeBalka.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. Robbie, who is it that gives the explanation?
Jeff does these.
Is Jeff here?
No, he actually came to my office about 4:30. He was sick.
I just wanted to tell him that.
He
I
came to your
appreciate-
office at 4:30?
No, sorry, 3:30.
I started to say, we're good.
Hey, I've had a lot of visitors today.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Teresa.
I just wanted to point out that the breakdown is
He does do a good job.
that's really good. I mean, I preferred, rather than someone stepping forward saying, I want $6,000, but to give a full breakdown like that was good.
Any
Thanks.
more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, our next appropriation from EMS, they're moving $12,178.28 out of unassigned into communications and to pay for new mobile radios. There's a large explanation on this one too. And Nathan is here as well.
Motion and a second. Questions for Nathan? Discussion? Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nathan, if I understand the explanation correctly, when you first bought the radios, you took out the 800 megahertz.
Yes.
Didn't think it was needed, I'm assuming.
So we
Then-
still primarily operate on UHF, VHF.
Right.
But as we continue to try and shift and move towards the 700, 800, like we've seen with all Oak Ridge PD, Oak Ridge Fire, and the Sheriff's Department, we're wanting to add that back. That's what this is doing, is it's not actually, we're flashing them to add the 700, 800 back to have that capability, the digital capability.
And you didn't already have this
No,
in your
sir.
budget
No, sir.
as we passed it?
No, sir. Our communication budget for this year was 5,000. So we did not originally have this in our operating budget. And I believe that this was the way that I was going to look to address it if the year ended with us getting some money from savings last year. So that's why we went the appropriation route.
But this is just for 4 of the ambulances?
Yes, sir.
The newest ones?
Yeah, the 4 new mobile radios.
What about the radios in the pre-existing ambulances?
They already had them.
They already had the 800?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, Medic 1 and Medic 4, when we bought theirs, they came with 700, 800. The last time when we bought the 4 at one time, an initial cost savings, we got 700, 800 off. We're looking to put that back on. So then we'll have all of our Medic 1 through 6, which is our primary 911 trucks, will all have the digital capabilities. So then we'll start taking a look at, can we get on the Tennessee Valley system? Pretty cheap,
Right.
$52 a year. So-
And I understand the need of needing the 700 megahertz. My only criticism was going to be, why did you decide first not to get it and now
Yeah, it was
realize you
initially
need
a
to
cost
have it?
savings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Nathan.
Yes, sir.
Finance, Robbie Holbrook.
I worked up a couple. One is for motor pool. We actually did this budget amendment last year, but we didn't get to spend the money, and motor pool didn't get to spend the money for capital outlay, so it rolled back into a reserve, a restricted code. And so we're taking the 19,000 out again so he can purchase the capital outlay request he had last year from that restricted code.
Got a motion? Second? Discussion? Questions for Mr. Vickery? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And the next budget amendment is, Emory Valley Center is now paying for the Firewatch employees, and this was our first payment they made, the $6,906, and I'm just putting it in the mayor's part-time code to continue paying for that employee.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Mr. Catherine?
How much longer are we gonna be paying for this? Because didn't they have, Mayor, didn't Emory Valley have some type of closing or finalization prior to a move recently?
Jennifer Anderson sent me, I can forward you an email because I can't remember. She said they were nearing the end of this project. They did agree to continue to pay, so I'm just paying it out of my part-time and then we invoice them. So this was the first invoice, but they will make us
Okay.
whole for all of the Firewatch.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
So, Robbie, what period of time is this for?
That's
You
a
said that
good,
it's the first.
a good question.
invoice.
Peyton, do you remember? I think it's some of the end of June.
Receipted on 8/27.
Yes, so
Well, no, that's when we got it.
that's when we got the money, but I'm not 100%
Cannot
what I'm saying.
remember.
He's saying it's for a
I did the invoice, so I can get that to you. Basically, when those funds expended or expired, that county commission had appropriated for Firewatch, when that ran out, from that time forward, we started invoicing for,
But
because
are
there
you
was no
sending
more
them
money.
to 'em, are you sending them an invoice on a quarterly basis, or?
I think we did it, was it
it was about
2
3 months or 2 or 3
3
months. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll send them another one at the end of this month too.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And getting back to Catherine's question, that's going to be indefinite as far as,
It should not be. So they are near completion. If you recall, the county donated the building adjacent to the primary DARC building. And they entered into a contract, they've been remodeling that, and they will move the daycare there. So at that point, it should end, and I say should end Firewatch, because I don't know what their intentions are yet on, are they still planning to use the gymnasium? Would any of that still require, Firewatch? So we'll have to get to that discussion. But my understanding is their full intent is they're going to be in there. That will end the Firewatch. That was one of the motivating factors for why they went ahead and entered into the remodeling phase, was because they were having, this was really on them, because if the daycare is not in that building, then we don't need Firewatch. So,
so when they're going to determine if they use the gymnasium or not?
I guess when we get to the end, of this process, we'll need to have that conversation. I can have it sooner rather than later.
Okay.
But, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I just know that does happen now, and I don't know what kind of room, so I'm just predicting.
But they're utilizing more than just the
Yes.
gymnasium.
Yes.
I mean, they've got classrooms that
Right.
they're utilizing at this time, so.
But my understanding is they
just
have
took it on
no,
themselves, right?
they have no intent to continue to pay Firewatch or deal with that. So my understanding when I met with Jennifer and the board was that their intent is just to be over there, and all of that will go away and end, so.
Well, if that's their intent, then there shouldn't be any need for them to utilize the gymnasium, because then that would just throw back a requirement for a firewalker. And I don't think that that's a necessity.
Well, it was more than the gymnasium, though. If you remember when we went through the premises.
No, but what I'm
they
saying,
had-
if the children aren't in the building,
Sure.
then there's no firewalker needed. So when they move out, in my
Right.
opinion, they need to move out completely.
Right, right.
Yeah. That's all.
I can get with Roger, I know he stays in contact, and I think Preen Construction is actually doing the work in there, and Jennifer's pretty excited about the remodel, so.
It was just my understanding, someone had said that they were at a finalization
Right.
stage and should be out relatively soon.
I guess I'm only leaving open that small possibility because I don't want something to happen and you say, well, Mayor, you said. So I'm just leaving
Understood.
that window of contingency there
maybe
so that
by
I
next
haven't
budget meeting.
ill-advised you.
Because we all
Maybe by
know,
next budget meeting, you can give us
I will
the-
firm that up.
Please. Thank you.
because we all know how renovations go.
Mr. Porter, or go ahead,
Do
Robbie,
we
I'm
get
sorry.
a voice vote on that last one?
Not yet.
I don't know.
No.
No.
Motion to approve?
I think we get the first
Yeah,
and
we haven't
second.
gotten to that point.
We're in the discussion period then.
Right.
Okay.
We're
Any more discussion?
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Robbie.
You're welcome. All right, the next one is from Ryan Porter and Mayor Frank and Animal Control, increasing other contracted services 101-55-1203.99 by $15,000 and decreasing 101-34-530 ANML 8,000 and 101-34-630 2,000 committed care of animals for $7,000. Is to complete final design development for new animal shelter. This is coming from a reserves balance of $10,546 in restricted and $8,000 in animal control.
Got a motion and a second to
read that.
approve. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any disapprove? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, the next three appropriations are from the mayor. The first one is for archives and records, increasing other contracted services, 51,910,399, $5,887, and decreasing the restricted archives and records reserve, $5,887.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any disapprove? Motion carries.
All righty. The next one is increasing 101-517-203.99 lost, other contracted services, $4,200, and decreasing unassigned fund balance. Is to engage the services of Los Design for draft and final conceptual site plan for Lost Bottom Park to conduct public meetings, improve boat ramp, program boat trailer parking, day use parking, signage enhancements, create a day use area with picnic facilities, explore ADA compliant fishing pier, and other options. Deliverable will be presented to Conservation Board, proposing to assign to $32,869 in DOE PILT funds, using $4,200 for planning and reserving and $28,669 for the project.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and the last appropriation from the mayor is, we're decreasing unassigned fund balance $3,000 and moving it into 101-99-100-590 MVCA. That's transfers out of 101, and then we're going to move it into the next amendment is to move it into the 171 fund.
Motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? Mr. Chuck?
As you notice, a lot of the information packets and stuff like that, especially when it goes back to the 2005 notes and stuff, I was the one that made the motion to approve it for the lease for 20 years, and I'm going to support it again. We need to also maybe get somehow a message to these people who are leasing this property and things like that, that this is county property, which is taxpayers' property. And this money we're giving them is taxpayers' dollars, which means the people who are leasing this property and operating this property needs to keep a neutral political mind, which means what I'm going at during the last election, they were very, very politically objective. Anyone and everyone that was anyone near that particular area had their signs stolen, tore up, and thrown away, except for one particular candidate. And there's going to be taxpayer, county property, taxpayer things, and everything like that. They cannot be politically involved in the particular candidates. And they need to be informed as such. And because we as taxpayers, I mean, candidates and everything, we pay for our signs out of our own pockets. And that's comes up a lot of money. And you would not believe, on that one particular stretch of road right there, how many signs I had that was destroyed, thrown in the creeks, and all that stuff. And there's people who operated that particular property there. And to the point where I was getting ready to have the sheriff get involved. And so, they need to be informed that, whether we get the law director to write up something, formally and have them sign it or do something, that they need to be, and operate politically neutral.
Chuck, let's let Jay address that.
Well, I'm saying though, if,
Yeah.
that needs to be brought up before we vote and everything, and give them more money, that, this needs to be looked at and took care of.
So are you going to make a motion that we don't approve this?
No, I'm gonna vote for it.
Okay.
But you know that there is a problem, with how they're presently operating.
Well, you know how elections go now.
Yeah, but if they're wanting the land and they're wanting the money.
I understand.
Then they need to maintain themselves as politically neutral.
Neutral, I understand, and I appreciate your statement. Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get started, Andy, I've gotten a text that maybe some of the microphones up here may not be working very well. Okay, all right. Yeah. I've never had that problem myself with my big mouth, but anyway. You might want to use another mic, Chuck. I understand what Commissioner Fritz is saying. As a matter of fact, there was another issue we had a while back with property that the county leased or allowed rent, and then we got stuck with a bill that we wound up having to pay because that company that leased from us abandoned ship and left debts. So I kind of agree with what Commissioner Fritz is saying on that. I would like to see an overall reconsideration of who we allow to use county property, and I don't even know if Jay would have an opinion on that. I'm sure he would, but I understand where Commissioner Fritz is coming from, and it is a precarious situation where county property is used by private individuals. I agree. I would like to see something drafted up, and maybe we have it on file somewhere and I just haven't seen it, but it can get us in some sticky situations. So I echo Commissioner Fritz's concerns on
Okay,
that.
thanks, sir. Any other discussion on that? All in favor of the motion? Aye. Any disapprove? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, our next amendment is a transfer from the Parks Department from Ben Taylor. It's moving money and increasing their maintenance personnel, 51240-167, $8,200, and decreasing part-time help by $8,000 and other supplies and materials by $200.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next amendment is from from county attorney. It's decreasing communication 514-307, $2,263.45, and increasing other contracted services 514-00399, $1,263.45, and they're transferring the rest to the communication code 589-00307, $1,000.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Brian, are you on top of this? On law directors, moving of,
We're trying to move all the communication money into that 58,900.
okay. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, 31 and 32, pages 31 and 32 are transfer and appropriation from Hal Cousins, the clerk and master.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? I'm sure Mr. Howe would answer any questions you got. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
All right, the next one is an appropriation from the senior center. They're increasing code 56-300-359, which is disposal fees, $1,200, and 56-300-425, which is gas for $400 and out of unassigned. and neither one of these were budgeted for. Actually, they corrected this last year. She transferred money from her budget last year to correct this, but it didn't carry over because of the reverting back to last year's budget. So I think we actually cut the extra money out of the budget, so there isn't any money to move from her budget.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion?
So there was no money, I'm sorry, yes.
Go.
So there was no money budgeted for utilities?
It's not utility, it's disposal fees from solid waste
Disposal fees, okay.
that she's charged quarterly. There's a lot of departments that are charged that fee quarterly.
But still, that should be.
And gas,
budgeted money.
the 425 is the Wex bill. It's like, I guess when she drives the van or something and citizens around and she has to pay for gas, they charge it and then we pay the Wex bill to them.
We pay the Wex bill.
Do what?
We pay it
Right.
out of the general fund.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, number 34 is an appropriation from Motor Pool Fleet Services, John Vickery. It's increasing several codes by $15,760 out of unassigned. I can read those out if you'd like.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion?
He did very well on his explanation, too.
Yeah, I will say the main portion of this is for the extra rent. When we approved during the budget process, it was approved that he could rent more space, but we didn't fund it, so therefore that's what that's for.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any disapprove? Motion carries.
Okay, the next three are from me, or four, including 38. Actually, 38 is from Brian. The first one is the Esg contract. When we elected to do the engineering part, if we don't execute the contract, then we will owe them $35,000, and this is just moving the money to a code to pay them in case we don't. But if we do execute a contract, then we'll move it right back to unassigned.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion? I guess my problem with this is that last year we asked the mayor to shop around and she found it cheaper, the same service cheaper. Now this year, we're not even shopping around.
That's the next one. Arcadis. This is ESG right now, sorry.
This isn't what you were thinking of.
Okay. Well, I'll save my comment for later then. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Jerry, the next one is a bill is increasing the budget 519-00399-3311, $38,761 from unassigned fund balance to pay for the landfill monitoring and reporting at Blockhouse Valley. And we're using Arcadis.
That's the one I have a little problem with. I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve. Need a second.
I'll second for
I got a motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Catherine.
I haven't been on commission that long. However, I do recall that there was discussion early on about Blockhouse Valley landfill being ready to be turned over. What happened with that?
And why isn't it turned over?
Yes. I mean, we had a little field trip out there last year, and we were shown that this and that had been done and that the property had been cleaned up. So what's the holdup? Does anyone know?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can research and come back.
Well, can you get us an answer to
I can
that
try,
somewhere
yes.
along the line? I think we ought to be kept.
I can answer a little bit about it, even I'm not over this project, but I do know the history on the landfill. So even when it does get turned over, the monitoring and reporting is still a requirement. So we'll still have to have annual testing, that the amount of testing gets reduced over time, but you still have to prove that everything, you know, the remediation is working and that all of a sudden there's not some new issues that are materializing. So we do have to continue to do that over time. And I haven't seen what the proposals are for, but it says quarterly monitoring, annual site inspection, and water sampling. So I'm assuming that's part of our commitment. Even if it's turned over, we still have to continue to do that for a while.
I don't mind us doing it
Right.
forever, but I think we ought to do it as cheap as we can, unless there's just one company that's qualified to do it.
Right.
Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And echoing what the mayor was explaining, and I remember it the way she's explaining it, the meeting we had out there that morning that Commissioner Denenberg's speaking of is, I think, with Mr. Byrd and his group. They are still, I don't know what the right terminology to use, but with help of inmate labor from the county jail, we are sprucing up, I guess, fixing some of the land that is still out there so that it can be used for the outdoor classroom. And I think that meeting was a lot about being able to do that. This is actually a secondary issue, Mr. Chairman, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, that will still have to be maintained like the mayor explained.
The monitoring?
Yes, sir.
Well, going back to Chairman White's point, is this the best for the least number of dollars that we can do? I mean, $38,000, almost $800 is a lot of money to test water.
And Mayor, I understand, you don't have to get up, but I understand that you're not over this project, but maybe at some point, Robbie, we could get, I understand that Mr. Yeager is over this project. Maybe at some point, we could get his reasoning or his, reasoning for, or explanation, or give us a reason why we don't have a couple of prices, or if this is the only company that's qualified to do the monitoring. Is that a fair question? Sure. Would this board support that? I mean, if we can get it done, the same service, cheaper.
Well, I do recall that when questioned it the last time this came up, that if I'm not mistaken, the law director did say that this was a good price for the service that they're providing. I'm just questioning whether or not that we still need as extensive testing, because I remember it being pretty much the same amount of money or close to it.
Well,
And there's been so much of a progress out there on the property that I just was wondering whether or not that in-depth of testing was still needed.
well, so we got a motion to approve and a second, and we've had our discussion, so maybe we can approve it for this year, but I'd like to see at some point, I'd like to see us look to see if there's, is this time sensitive?
I think so, yes.
All right, I got a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any disapprove? Motion carries. Thank you, Robbie.
All right, and the last one I have is from the IT Department Finance. It's a budget amendment that IT Advisory Committee made a motion to recommend to Budget Committee Commission that the job description of the IT Director be modified to include the responsibility of the Anderson County phone system, and that a supplement of $10,000 be assigned for that role.
$10,000 for Brian. Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve. Need a second. Second. Got a motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Probably supplemental, is that a bonus or is it recurring?
It's, in the way I understand it, it was recurring.
Tim Shelton's here.
Okay. And that's why I put impact on next year's, yes.
The Operations Committee has sort of changed the game a little bit where it comes to our communications and phone system. They've moved and shifted that responsibility over to the IT department. With that, the committee
sent it back to the IT committee to discuss what would be the correct compensation for that. Brian is currently paid a salary for IT. This was a supplement that went along with the new responsibilities, but if that responsibility shifted, for example, let's say it went from the IT department over to Roger in buildings and grounds, then that supplement would go along with that. And so it was just a way to make sure that we didn't end up giving it to the IT department, then they pass off the jobs but keep the money. And so that's the reason why it's considered a supplement year in and year out, and it would be reoccurring.
So who's the communication director now?
Well, we don't have one.
don't have one.
You through?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shane?
Tim, why does the new phone system require someone so needed, and this may be a technical question for Brian, why does this even require $10,000 more a year?
That's actually a supplement going as compensation for handling that whole
But
responsibility.
why is that so extensive that that's even needed?
Every time there's a change in phone numbers, every time there's a change in equipment, all of that is run through computers now. We don't actually pick up and call AT&T. We go through an actual computer system to make phone calls. So as a result, the people that would work on servers, the people that would work on battery backups and all those things would be our IT department. And what got shifted to us was, how do you all want to deal with that moving forward? Obviously, it's something that we did not have when we originated the IT department. It's a new responsibility. It's a new conglomerate of responsibilities tied all into one. But that's short answer, that's what it is.
So no one had this responsibility until the phones went, and I'll use Shane's language, computerized.
Yeah, it was outside.
Let me make a criticism, not of Brian or the IT department, but of the telephone system. I don't like it. We've had issues out of it ever since we've had it at the jail. We have burned up Brian's telephone and his department's telephone ever since we had them. I guess I'm looking at it from a simplistic standpoint, but if having the phone system that we have now is going to require someone to have to earn another $10,000 a year to maintain it, I would be for going back to the old telephone system. Back when we did have AT&T. Now, I understand there may be some cost savings overall, but the service that we have gotten from the jail is very lacking. I hear complaints from the community several times where they have tried to call to get in on the jail's main line. It's a constant busy signal. I hear complaints from other departments who have tried to contact us and get the same problem. Brian, I think, has tried to correct it on several different occasions. When the switchboard downstairs is called, a lot of times Faye will pick up the line and try to do a transfer, and it doesn't go to where it needs to go, and she comes back. Now, all these, I'm sure, are problems that are kind of outside Brian's wheelhouse, but at the same time, if we're reached a point to where this new computerized phone system is costing this much money, I don't want it.
Well, and to your point, we've had it for quite some time. It was an outside group that was actually monitoring it and we had even, believe it or not, bigger problems with an outside group fixing it than we have inside. But this isn't something that the IT committee or the IT department requested. We're not asking to take it over. We were told, you're going to take it over. Now, what's the compensation that would be fair for that? And just like what you said, that phone has been lit up ever since of we've got this problem, we've got that problem, and so on. And so that's really what was driving the whole theater of what we're going to have to pay somebody to take on all these new responsibilities that really and truly a year or so ago we didn't even want. But it's fallen upon the shoulders of the IT department to have, and that was established by operations. I don't think you'll have any opposition to going with us to operations and all of us arguing for a new phone system. I'd be totally so. But what are we going to pay for that, and would that be cost effective? I don't have an answer
And
for
that's
that.
another good question. Is the new phone system we have now saving us any money, even with adding $10,000 to the salary?
Well, it's this month, this first month, it's actually truly been paid for. I think, Robbie, we just literally paid it off.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We just
It was
paid
a
for
2014
it.
purchase. Now, I'd like to ask, are you still seeing that as of now? Because the 8813 number I switched over Is that still occurring? Are you
It's
still?
been a little while.
It's been a while now, because
Yep.
we made AT&T, our new rep, Keith Kirkendall, came in and replaced Steve Wilson. He was able to get some of those fires put out that other fella hadn't done. So as we stand right now, if there's new information I need, if you're still having that issue.
No, I'm just regurgitating what you and I have spoken about in the past.
I put
But-
that fire out. It should be, Shane.
I would rather him not even have these responsibilities. It would be my perfect world
But it's-
solution, but that's just me.
Shane, I want to say something. This system is so intertwined with my network, it's part of it. It's not where we stand now, and I agree with Tim. If we go down the road somewhere and look at another system, I have no opposition to that whatsoever. But as it stands right now, we've got a system that is part of this network, and it's not for just pulling a wire. It's integral, it's integrated, and it's part of the system. The phones are first line in front of the computer, so literally, it's major. It's something we would all need to discuss, and like I said, nothing against that, but we do need to think about it if that's where we want to go. But as of right now, if there's any more issues, please let me know, because I'm not aware of that.
And you've always been very receptive
Yes,
to
sir.
them, absolutely,
Yes, sir. Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wait. Chuck's first.
I mean, this is not hearsay, this is firsthand experience. I mean, if I call the courthouse, if I don't get someone to answer the phone,
Yeah.
I hang up. Because if I get a recording that asks for where I want to go, the system does not recognize my voice. I might tell it where I want to go. It takes me everywhere in the world where I want to go. I mean, it is very frustrating.
Okay.
And that's just very recently.
Yeah.
I mean, if I don't not get to whoever's answering the phone, I just hang up because it does not take me where I want to go. It does not listen to me. If I try to say zoning office, it takes me to
It's that southern slang.
I know with Faye, one thing we discovered not too long ago, some of the numbers, like when that rollback, I forget it was Shane that said it was rolling back to Faye when they'd call the jail. I found out that was actually programmed in. And I'm having some of those things changed because it was, like I said, it was never managed. It was more of just ad hoc.
If I say finance office, you take me somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, take me on it don't recognize where you want to tell it to go.
Yeah.
And that's just, me
I'm
personally,
continually working those issues for you right now. I've got a docket of things that need to happen with the phone system, and BCTI, the group that we purchased it from, they're being responsive, but I have to keep the system running on top of the money that we've spent with the units we buy from them. If I have changes made too quick, then we burn our budgets for those line codes that we have. So, like I said, I'm very open for other suggestions, but as this is what I have right now, and I have to keep it running as it is.
I just know if I'm having that kind of problem.
Yes.
I know what everybody.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I agree.
But that's what me personally, I'm experiencing.
Yes, sir.
You finished? Ms. Tracy?
Who was handling the phone system prior to Brian?
I think there was a couple of part-times, and then,
Talking about the company, I think.
it's, well, I'm not, in 2014, I guess. Who was?
Well, his call,
His
was
call has-
phone maintenance, and there was a contract for his call.
His call was part of it, I know.
So
Bill
roughly,
Rice.
in other words, how much were we paying someone outside the building to tend to our headache of a rat's nest of a phone system?
Around 30,000.
$30,000? Okay.
Through?
Yeah.
Mr. Creasy?
I want to speak in favor of the increase. We're in the right, we got the right man on the job now, and he's saved us a lot of money, and he will continue to save us, and I'm sure that he will correct any problems that Commissioner Shane spoke about.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I think you're in good hands, in my
Thank you, sir.
opinion.
Any more discussion? All in favor of this $10,000 supplement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
Robbie, if you would, roll call the vote, would you please? Or I sort of hear,
Can we just do a raise of hands?
sir,
Raise them.
all in favor, raise your hand. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, Five yeses. All that disapproves, raise your hand. 1, 2, 5 to 2, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the last budget amendment is the one we approved to add late. We're taking money out of the assigned ADA money, 101-34710-3000.
Thank you, Tim.
$9,387 and increasing 101-58,900-399 AD ATR, which is miscellaneous other contracted services for ADA transition plan. And this money will be used for consulting and training for web development that will make the Anderson County websites all ADA compliant.
Move for approval.
Got a motion? Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any disapprove? Motion carries.
Okay. Now we're to the sections part of our agenda. The first one that I put on the section was capital improvement. We've kind of been putting this off month to month, and we've slowly, I guess, other departments have went and taken care of their own capital improvement needs, so the list has gotten a little smaller. But right now on the imperative list that are the smaller costs, they total $337,770, and the larger imperative costs are at $2.7 million. And I know one time the Budget Committee had approved or I talked about approving a budget amendment that would take the money out of unassigned fund balance to pay for the smaller needs. I mean, we can do that. We still have some money in the 171 reserves that we could use to also pay for capital improvement. And we have three options. We also have the $3, the litigation tax revenue that's going into the capital improvement fund, the restricted for capital outlay. It's at $117,523.43 right now. So those are some options to pay for capital. We also have some, 7.7 cents going into cap, but it will take the whole year so we can accumulate any money to pay for anything out of that. Rick has a question.
Mr. Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back during the budget committee process, however many months ago, I think I made a motion to do $490,000. We've carved that down a little bit. I would like to make a motion that we fund page 1, section A, as well as on the next page, the EMA, truck and SUV. Both of those, the total $457,770. My motion would be to have Robbie out of any of those funds, however you see fit. But I think we should fund at least those 7 projects.
Run that by me again, Rick.
All of section A,
All of that first page.
right?
That's the jail records management system, the animal control truck,
Right,
the heavy-duty scan tool for
right.
fleet services, EMS stretchers, radio equipment for EMS, and bariatric equipment for EMS.
And then the $120,000 for the truck and SUV for EMA. As far as the others, those are very large ticket items. I think we're going to have to look a little different on that part, but at least for this meeting, since we did keep deferring this over each budget committee, and we've got a pretty good fund balance, I think the 457 with the places Robbie's saying funded out of is the appropriate time to do that. So,
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. I need a second to that motion. I got a motion on the floor for all of number A and 120 for EMA. I need a second. I need a second. I need a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Now discussion. Ms. Teresa. You're
I have a question for Nathan. On page 1, there's $164,800 to replace 8 current stretchers, then add 9 more, which would give each ambulance its own stretcher. $36,800 for radio equipment outdated. Some radios no longer have parts available for repairs. $22,000 is for bariatric equipment to be purchased. It's $222,000. Of the budget that you got for this year, it was called the Cadillac version. You had 3 options that you were presenting to budget committee, and you made it through the first one and it was approved. Do you not have funds in the Cadillac version to be able to take care of some of these costs?
Well, we didn't get the Cadillac version of our budget. That was the one that was very early in the process that we approved a lot of budgets, and we were up to like 60-some cent tax increase, and we scaled all of that back. So we didn't get the quote-unquote Cadillac budget. No, we did not. And none of our budgets included the capital outlay requests. Those were separate.
Well, we had talked at one time about the stretchers. You were needing bariatric equipment.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we still need it. We don't have any
And
of
none of that was put in
it.
your budget.
No, we don't have that in our operating budget. That was all a capital outlay request. Yeah, and so the stretchers, to clarify that a little bit, because I think it was copy and pasted from the 5-year capital outlay request that we did. We requested for 8 stretchers, and then in the future, we would add 9 more. So we're not asking for 17 stretchers
Okay.
right now.
All right.
This is 8 stretchers, and in the future, future budget years, we would be looking at 9 more to get every ambulance their own power cot.
And then you have for radio equipment, it's $36,000.
Yes.
But you just said that you just got some brand new radios. How
Yes,
many-
so
Go ahead.
looking at new ambulances, when new ambulances come in, putting the new radios in them. So this is to replace our mobile radios. So like I said, right now, we've got 6 mobile radios that will have the capability of operating on that 700, 800, the new mobile radios. Well, we've got almost 20 ambulances. So that means we've got 14 ambulances that have old radio equipment. So we'll be looking to replace those as time goes on. So this is a part of that process to replace those radios. And they're not cheap. I mean, you can ask the guys from Sheriff's Department, I mean, the EMA, they're not cheap. Radios aren't cheap.
Are you running 14 ambulances on the road a day?
Up to 12.
Okay.
But then when they swap into a backup truck, then they have an old radio in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Bob.
Just for clarification, so we're talking on Section A, 2019, 2020, it would be 457 to come out of fund balances. Okay, how does that relate back over on the other page where we've listed 2019, 2020, total of $2,719,000? Are those, I mean, I guess I'm saying, how are we setting the priorities for each of those?
Yes.
I think, Commissioner Smallridge, it's kind of the lower price ticketed items that are imperative that needs to be funded. I think when you get into 350, 450, 450,000, 834,000, that may be something that we have to look, either a capital outlay note or something different as far as fund.
At a different funding source.
Absolutely, because, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is try to address at least some of these imperative needs. I realize the others are imperative too. I think on the voting machines, if I recall the mayor speaking about something, there may be some funding there from the state. Obviously, the sheriff's cars are going to end up being a need, but I think those are some very high ticketed items that we need to look at a different funding source. That would be my answer.
Mr. Chuck.
Well, at a 6.7 million count, I mean, we could fund everything on A, and then, I mean, we've got, I mean, the sheriff has got to have patrol cars. I mean, they're hurting bad for that. And then at one time, we were buying patrol cars and ambulances every single year as part of the regular operating budget. I mean, that wasn't a given. I mean, every single year, that was part of the annual budget that until we start crunching. And with that, we could fund everything in A and buy the patrol cars and ambulances and still have a fund balance of $5.3 or $4 million left after that. And which is a pretty good hefty fund balance of 5.3 or 4 million. And those are things that we need to look at and get going. And if we can get the voting machines, I hear a note on the voting machines that says there might be a grant for $300,000 that we could get reimbursed for. So I mean. So that could be addressed there maybe. So I'd like to amend that motion and include the, along with section A, that we also include the patrol cars and the new ambulances in that. And that's, well, ahead so these folks can get these things on order and get them in here because we're hurting bad for these things. And we need to get those on the recurring thing to replace the aging and over mileage vehicles that we have.
I'll second that amendment.
Well, if we're going, okay. I've got a motion, or I've got an amendment and a second on the amendment to include everything except the voting machines.
No, include the voting machine,
Everything except the rubber roof and the dump trucks.
Yeah, we're just going to add, the only thing we're going to include to the A is just the patrol cars and the ambulance.
Well, you know, Mr. Long could make an argument for those trucks. Amendment to the motion is add the voting machines, the patrol cars.
No, not the voting machines.
Patrol cars and EMS things.
Let me write this down.
1,422,770. Now, I will just a reminder that fund balance is unaudited. So we could have adjustments. I'm not saying that we will, I'm not saying we won't, but I'm just saying it is unaudited. There's always that possibility.
Okay.
There's also an opportunity too with the ESG, and me and the mayor have been talking about this, with the ESG situation where they fund on the, you get a, you do a loan on a savings that you have. You could also combine other money with it and borrow at that time. There's that opportunity, and there's Scott had mentioned a possibility of refinancing in May that would free up some money. So we have some opportunities this year other than fund balance, but it's just up to you guys.
Okay, so let's, do I entertain another discussion before we vote? What's the
Discussion on the amendment.
discussion on the amendment? Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Until Chuck amended the motion, my vote was going to be no. And I understand where Rick's going with this, and I understand his logic, but during the budget process, we accepted a plan from the sheriff's office of how they would fund not only the needs for the jail, but for the patrol needs that we had told them, no, we're not going to include in the tax increase. We allowed them to submit a plan which included being able to fund those additional positions. So our goal here before long, we've already started the process, is to hire more sheriff's office patrol officers as well as jail officers for the sheriff's office. We don't have foot patrol anymore like we used to back in the old days. So hiring the officers without the cars to put them in would be kind of none effect. So the funding for the patrol cars, as Chuck's already eloquently pointed out, is an imperative need. I don't agree right now with the ambulance part of Chuck's amendment, but I'll go ahead and go along with it because I know the desperate need that we have right now with the patrol cars. Without this amendment passing, I'll be voting no on the original motion. Mr. Chairman, also, after everybody on the committee has spoken, I'd point out to you that Mr. Yeager is standing at the mic with some comments and hope.
I thought Miss Catherine was next.
That's right, she is. My question is, thank you very much. During our lovely budget process, and quite frankly, I don't know where things fell because after a while, things got very confusing. But I distinctly remember Natalie bringing in a list of items that were listed as imperative that we voted on. Now, my question is, what happened to that vote? Was it negated by the fact that we went back to a former budget? Or are we just forgetting about that particular vote and those items that were in that imperative list?
I don't think we forgot about that vote, but I think when we started reducing the tax increase, then that list went away. I'm sure it is somewhere, but now.
No, I have the list. I still have the list, but this is the list.
I mean, it's part of it.
No, this is the list now that what we still have left, first and second pages of the imperative needs.
Voting machines were not on the imperative
They
list.
weren't, but then there was an email, and I've passed that around, and he asked
we
that
all
it be
saw
put
it.
on the imperative situation, so she did.
And I do remember the other items being on the imperative list. And I would certainly support going back to what we had originally approved, because it was certainly put to us that these are extremely important items that need to be taken care of.
Okay, to answer.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. To answer Ms. Catherine's question, the list that we've got in front of us, you as the interim budget director, this is your list of what
Has been, the list that you received from Natalie before the budget was passed, actually it was last fiscal year. This is what's left from that list that we haven't already funded. Like Rex in general sessions already has went and bought shelving, and the juvenile shelves, they paid for that already. Tim Shelton covered a couple of his that were on here. So the list is reduced because these departments have went ahead and paid for it out of their own restrictions or their own money.
Okay, that's a good
They
answer.
needed it, I guess, faster than.
Ms. Teresa.
The voting machines, though, it was not an imperative item, and as far as I recall, Mark Stevens had said that this was for a pilot program, that it wasn't that it's imperative, we have to have it right now. This was part of a new program, there's new machines that they're putting out, and he wanted Anderson County to be on the list.
On the pilot program?
On the pilot program. And
Well-
he's got a note off to the side saying that, there's grant money that the county was gonna need to fund additional costs.
I have an email from him to the budget committee members. Our current voting system, the Hart E-Slate, was purchased in 2006 and has been used in 27 elections and is only compliant to 2003 voting standards. So the grant's for $300,000, and their equation is $10,000 for every voting location in a particular county, and Anderson County has 30 voting locations, so that's an additional $300,000 that the county would have to fund. But there's also been some talk, I know Commissioner Denenberg that there's other ways of funding these voting machines besides the county using any accounting funds. So I think that was one that still has some questions to be answered.
The county would have to come up with funds, but not a chunk of money of $350,000. I've talked to other counties that have purchased these new voting machines, and the state is requiring new voting machines. Let's just get right down to it. But what other counties have done, they use the money from the grant, which is $300,000 as their down payment, and then they negotiated with the vendor to stretch the balance that was owed over several years, and one county did it over 5 years and paid for it in that manner rather than a chunk of money one time.
Good thought.
And I had talked with Mr. Stevens about this, but I didn't get a very encouraging reply.
Okay. Any more discussion? Mr. Yeager, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think we're doing a disservice by having it in sections, because the $9,000 scan tool is just as important as Gary's $800,000. So I think by putting it into sections, you're minimizing the higher priced imperative items. It's just too easy to say, let's get these small ones out of the way. And I, even though I'm just sitting in the audience, I just think that they should all be treated equally instead of by dollar amount. Just an observation from the back row.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, please.
Just real quickly, I wanted to chime in and say I have reached out to the state to see about some financing and low-cost options on the voting machines. And then also, to Commissioner Yeager, I understand what he's saying, but actually, on the jail records, the animal control truck, it's literally dying. I mean, John is here, he can talk to you about it. And so it just so happens that these are the lower cost, but these really are the critical imperatives. So that's why they're on that list. And Robbie did work this down by calling around, seeing what really, is critical. There is still one request that Rex needs, but he said it can wait. So it doesn't have to be on the super critical list. So that's how that number was able to come down, is the work Robbie did on that. So.
Thank you, Mayor. So our amendment is to include the patrol cars and the ambulance.
I have a question. If we, for the things that we're not including in to pay off or to pay out of our fund balance, what would be the method for that? Did you have something in mind, Rick, for that, or?
I will say this, like when I talked to Scott Gibson about refinancing, he said that the rubber roof at DORC was something we could incorporate in the refinancing and pay for then. It has a longer lifespan than a roof obviously does, but
I guess my point, I don't want to make a mistake of buying patrol cars with a capital outlay note for 10 years and us get 5 or 6 years out of the car,
right,
and then us still be paying.
Yeah.
So
No.
that was just one of my concerns. I don't want to buy any vehicles on a long note. So.
Well, one thing I would suggest, and here's me giving my opinion, but whenever we purchase anything in IT, we ask Brian to sign off on it. Why do we not do the same thing with vehicles and ask John Vickery and the fleet services to sign off on it, including patrol cars and ambulances? It's just a thought.
No.
How many patrol cars is this for?
I don't know.
The idea behind the capital request was to buy new. We've been buying Missouri cars for quite some time, and when we get them, and most of them are between 60 and 75,000 miles. They do put a Band-Aid on a problem, but at some point we need to inject new fleet into the system. The 5 positions that we're granted through the new budget, we pretty much have hired those positions. One's in the academy. A couple of them, though, they will be getting into a car that's over 200,000 miles. And another thing too, with the Missouri option, is all they do is chargers. Well, we don't want to do chargers for a couple of reasons. One is that it's going to break John Vickery's budget, to be frank. The Ford Explorer in a county like we have, the driveways that we go up and the terrain.
Well, let alone the gear you have to carry.
Yeah, Dodge Chargers are just not, they did Band-Aid it for us, but they're just not ideal. And 2, it's and John can second this, it's extremely expensive to repair a Dodge. Our goal is we were working with the Ford Motors on a system that they have that would outfit new Explorers. And we did do the test run on that truck that we paid out of the drug fund. That has worked wonders. It has been very beneficial to have a four-wheel drive truck to get in some places that nothing in our fleet could. So we were wanting to put some of those in there, but we're looking anywhere from 10 to 12. And just a side note too, we always get stuck on patrol. A little close to my heart, civil process, since I'm the director of civil process. Most of our civil process cars are 10, 12 years old. They drive Monday through Friday, 40, 45 hours a week, and we're over 200,000 miles there, all out of them. It's just, again, I do believe that cars, in terms for the sheriff's department, are an operating expense, not a capital.
No, and I appreciate the explanation.
Yeah.
And we want to, and we want to work closely with John too on this moving forward, because it's not our intent to buy anything that breaks him, for sure.
Let's vote on the amendment. All in favor of adding the patrol cars and the ambulance to our motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Got one no. Okay. Now going back to our motion. Our motion, original motion is the equipment for EMS.
All of page 1.
All of page 1, and the truck and SUV for EMA. That's the original motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Chuck.
We do have a few items left, and as Scott made a comment here before us, there are some things that he could probably help us do to, financing, like Robbie just said, with the roof for DAR facility, for it being a long-term fix, refinancing, things like that could be accomplished probably with that and things. So there are some other ways that we could probably accomplish these other items and get those done. So this ain't over, and we can still.
This is a start.
Right, this is a start.
This is a start. All right.
And the sheriff basically, and I like to commend the sheriff's office for what they've been doing for the past week. A lot of people may not know, but they've been doing a lot of sting operations. They've done one out in my area, and they've done one up in Rocky Top and stuff, and they've been very successful in catching a lot of people doing things that they should be doing. And they're getting very serious on crime in Anderson
Good deal.
County.
All right.
So they need the vehicles.
Anderson County, Kim,
Are we on the second one? I'm sorry.
on B.
Yes. The HR Advisory Committee met, and we made several changes to the compensation plan. And that was, the advisory committee is made up of all elected officials, and Jay, and I was there. And they passed several motions. I included the minutes that were just changes to the compensation plan that by job titles, but they did not affect pay at all. So Kim can come up and speak to this if she'd like to. Because I think she has some additions too.
Good afternoon. I'll pass these out. This just kind of reiterates and puts it right in front of you on the order I'm going to go in. So what you're getting, the first handout is just the minutes, okay? Yeah. And then the second page kind of goes in order of how the HR Advisory Committee approved and how those were approved. Now, before we actually start talking about this a lot, please know that this does not include any increases or decreases in pay. It does not. Yeah, you have it. This just kind of puts it, if you look at the second page, it kind of puts it in an easier order. I try to make it as easy as I can.
She summarized the minutes.
Yes, I kind of summarized it for you. So the first page is just your minutes. The second page lists all of the things that we talked about in regards to the compensation plan was number 4 of the minutes. The top section right here was on slide A. It was approved by unanimous vote. And it's simply taking the current class titles and updating those to the proposed class title. That's all that's doing, is updating titles. I know it's not a surprise to you, but what they were called in 2008 are not what they are now called in 2019. The majority of these are either supported by CTAS, the department head, elected official, or a committee. So I'm not sure how you all want to go through this, if you want to go through them one by one, but all of these on this front page that looks like this was approved unanimously by the HR Advisory Committee.
So what do you want this committee to do?
I want you all to approve it as well.
Second.
Yep. Chuck had a question.
Well, we need a motion second, we got that.
Okay. Discussion.
Okay, I just want to say, you know, this is very good work and very good effort. I mean, and I'm glad that they went for the HR and everybody approved it. But I want to make the general comment that I want to make is that the plan that we put together, how many years ago?
2008.
2008 was, at that time, was a very good plan. Where it failed us is that we, as a commission, all 16 commissioners here, failed to keep it going. We came up with a plan, but that's all we did with it. We had a piece of paper, we had a plan, but we didn't
We
continue.
had good
At what
intentions.
point did it start breaking down?
The next year.
The next year.
Well, so the reason why I'm asking that is because it wasn't all 16 commissioners. I wasn't there.
I mean, well, because you weren't a commissioner at that time.
Correct.
So, but even now, for the past several years, because what it boils down to, in order to do it, it requires raises and things of that nature. And there's so many years employees didn't get raises and things because it required a tax increase. And so a lot of times over the times, if it required a tax increase, we had to tell our employees, sorry, we didn't do tax increases. A lot of times we gave benefit changes, helping out on their insurances and things of that nature. And they or gave them some vacation time extra or did a little extra benefits here and there. And they went aside about the pay. And that's where we got so far off on the compensation plan. And that's where all of your different fee officers started as they could start compensating internally. And that's how you start getting a lot of your discrepancies throughout the whole courthouse. And what we need to do is really try and see if we can't make a good faith effort to try to back this on a yearly basis and see if we can't keep it going and keep it up to date.
Good thought. Good thought. With our potential growth coming to this county,
right? If
we can watch our spending, we ought to be able to do this.
That's correct.
But it's up to every one of us.
And we need to, look at things and try to, remember our employees are the backbone of this county.
Yeah.
And we need to keep them in our forefront of our thoughts.
I got a motion on the floor and a second that we approve page Exhibit 5A as presented. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you. So on the second page, so I want to take the opportunity to restate that this body did allow me to clean up the compensation plan by removing past departments. We used to have a water department that was with Anderson County. They're no longer here. So it's simply cleaning up the compensation plan by removing those. So, and also to reflect the titles that are regarding the 81 law. Some of that changed, I'm sorry, as well. So simply updating that to clean it up and make it look proper. And then in the second paragraph, you can see that there is 3 more action items that I wanted to talk to you about. The suggestion to remove the Anderson County Sheriff Office titles from the plan as commission approved the SO's plan in prior year. So prior year, the sheriff's office come to the legislative body, they approved their own compensation plan. Okay, so they are not governed by Anderson counties. However, some of those titles are still embedded in there. So the request is just to take those off that are now listed on theirs and run through their civil service board.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
So next, on number 2 is the Anderson County Health Department. Those employees, they have state, grant, and county employees. They take the compensation of all of those members, and they rely and go by the state's compensation plan, and the link is here. It was Art Miller that was there at the time, and when I asked him for a copy, it is just huge. So they do have like an RN or some positions like that is on the compensation plan. And again, the request is just to simply take those off. They don't follow our compensation plan. They use the state's plan.
Second.
Question.
Do we fund that?
So they have some titles that we do fund, but they're limited. I mean, when you get a grant, it's usually governed. It tells you what you're going to pay, usually that position. So they have several of their employees that run through Anderson County, and they have Anderson County benefits, but they are told by the state what those employees will make by the grant.
They also create revenue, like with the dentist and
Okay.
department.
Yes.
So I got a motion. Did I have a second? Get a second. Got a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Number 3 is the Anderson County EMS has implemented a pay scale in which their department director presented that to Robbie. What was it, April of this year. That went into place, and they're following that pay scale. Also, our compensation plan only has 2, maybe 3 of their current titles that is on our compensation plan. So the remainder of them, we're either going to have to remove EMS from our compensation plan, or we're going to have to revamp and add all of those to ours. Now, as you know, EMS departments are paid a little different. So we would have to take that into account in building it. I will do whatever this body wants, but
What do you recommend?
So,
I mean, you're the man. I mean, you're the person.
well, actually, the mayor is over that department. So I'm sure she would have some input, and Nathan is here. But my prior years, EMS sets outside of that compensation plan. The county's compensation plan. You have a county's compensation plan that includes the majority, but your sheriff's department, your EMS, I couldn't speak to the health department. I don't remember if they were within hours or not.
Yes, go.
If Nathan's gonna submit a compensation plan, wouldn't it need to be approved by this body before it went into effect? I mean, if he's gonna submit his own, we're just not gonna let him submit whatever he wants. We're gonna look over it, right?
So the answer from my perspective is yes. We switched, when they switched in 2008, for some reason our department didn't switch to that. So when I became director, working with Kathy Best, we adopted the 20-step plan because we didn't have the 20-step plan. We had a 10-step plan, I think it was. So we moved to the county's 20-step plan. And that's what we've followed along since then, is we've remained on that 20-step plan. So we haven't implemented a separate one. We adopted the 20-step plan that the county had.
So you're fine with being on the county's compensation?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, I would envision the administrative people especially would be on that. The EMS personnel is a little bit harder because of the shift schedules and having different variances on differentials for assigned trucks. That would be a little bit difficult, but we didn't have anything going away from a 20-step plan. We are looking at a career development plan within our department to identify advancements for our medics and EMTs to learn skills and to develop internally. But as far as the pay side, we haven't gotten to the pay side to see if that's changing that or not.
Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nathan, you said something that triggered a memory. When we were discussing hourly rates for your EMS employees, and maybe Commissioner Waddell can correct me if I'm wrong on my memory, there's some that make, and I'll just throw these numbers out there, $15 an hour, some make $12 an hour, whatever.
Yes, sir.
In order for all of them to make like $40,000 at the end of the year, the one that was making $12 an hour was working more hours. Have I got that right?
Close.
Okay.
But yes, so those individuals that work a 24-hour shift work almost 3,000 hours a year, where a 40-hour worker works 2080. So they work almost 1,000 more hours a year. They do come in at a lower hourly rate.
But they wind up making about the same at the end of the year because of the more hours that are worked, right?
No.
Okay.
The day truck personnel that do work less hours on the year do come in at a higher hourly rate, but their annual is lower because they work less hours.
Okay, so the ones making less on the hour might wind up making more money at the end of the year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then going back to what Kim was saying a while ago, I don't see how you can go along with any other compensation plan. Is there a way to incorporate them both, doing it that way?
So I've got a 20-step system still.
Okay.
I know she's talked to me a little bit about having the minimum, middle, and top, but as far as how that would change our department, I don't know.
Okay.
We do have the 20-step, and I have the 20-step for all the different schedules.
But really isn't a moot point because of the hours that are worked. It may wind up someone who makes less on the hour making more at the end of the year. That whole, and I'm not knocking, I'm just saying that whole thing confuses me.
Well, it's also for instance, if somebody switches from a 24-hour truck to a day truck, if they were a level 9 here, then they move to a level 9 here. So they stay on that same level. So there's a 20-step system which has been submitted to HR, and I can't remember if I sent it to Robbie as well, but HR has that as well for all those schedules. So my staff knows if they switch to a different truck, what they're going to look like, what their pay is going to look like. So I already have that built out, so everybody knows what it is.
Okay.
And that's been distributed to our staff as well, and I know I resent it to HR here probably just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago.
Any more discussion?
Well, just one question.
Yes.
What do the two of you think is the best answer for the EMS department?
Paper, rock, scissors.
Yeah. So currently, there are only, I think it's an EMT 4 is what is listed on our compensation plan from 2008. And it's a part-time and maybe a full-time. That doesn't even touch the levels that he has, okay? So what he has done is whenever they were not incorporated, all of those were not incorporated in the 2008. It sounds like he and Kathy Best got together and created that 20-step plan for the EMS that actually set outside of what we were already doing as far as the county compensation plan goes. Whether that was ever approved by this body during that time, I've not been here that long, I can't speak to that. I don't know.
I don't remember if Kathy and I came to the body and approved that or not. I think we did, but I couldn't guarantee that we did or find the minutes if we did. It was a long time ago, if that happened. So the EMT, well, I'm sorry to correct, but it was EMT IV. And that designation is gone, but it is a Roman numeral 4. But that designation, they don't have EMT IVs in the state of Tennessee anymore, so that designation is gone. I definitely think the administrative side of our department needs to be on that same plan. That's administrative side. It makes sense.
But only
EMT,
the administrative side.
Yeah, the EMT and paramedic one it's complicated. It is complicated, but we do have that step system for them to, and that's also the potential advancement if they do get a step increase, then they know what their increase is going to be.
So Kim, make me a motion that we need to do.
Well, can I say something real quick?
Yes, sir.
I've been speaking to Kim a lot about this compensation plan, not directly EMS, but she's doing a really good job with it. Nathan, you have to submit changes to her when someone changes from a 24 to a 12 or 12 to 24,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, we do a change of status
So,
form.
I would be interested in Kim, I know she's not gonna like this, but sitting down and whittling it out. I mean, if we're gonna have an HR department, that's part of it. I'd like to see what she can come up with. And everybody, that way everybody's under the same. If Nathan wanted to submit something, I'd take a look at that too. I mean, just like with the sheriff, they submitted theirs, I don't know, 2008 or whatever, and it was approved. If that's what he wanted to do, I'd be fine with that. But Kim's already done most of the work. I don't really think it'd be that difficult to do a couple of more positions on it, and then it would all be the same.
So you're making a motion to defer this?
No.
So before we
Well-
make any decisions, I would also like to hear from the mayor, because this is her department. Sorry.
Well, make me a motion and we'll
All
vote.
right, well, I'm gonna make a motion to defer this.
To number
this
3?
portion.
Number 3.
Number 3.
Okay.
At least for 30 days.
Okay.
Let them kind of work things out rather than bring it to the podium.
Okay.
Throw out another suggestion.
Got a motion and a second discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. It's deferred for 30 days. We'll expect something
Yes,
30
sir.
days from today.
Yes, sir. So the last portion is in your minutes, number 4F, it's slide 18. Commissioner Meredith, I think, was the one that mentioned it at Budget Committee, that we take the current compensation plan with the 20 steps, and we create it to look a little bit more with a minimum, a midpoint, and a max. So what I did at the HR Advisory Committee was have them review that. And if you look, if you'll go to slide 18, and it looks like this. It's the one that has this crazy down here at the bottom. So this is Blount County. And I just pulled their first two.
Keep going. Keep going. There you go.
Got it.
Okay. All right, so this has the minimum, the midpoint, and the max. Over at the side is your pros and cons. Down here at the bottom is what we currently have in place with the 20 steps. So you can see the difference in the two, how this is easier to read, and the differences. Well, my goal was to share this with the HR Advisory Committee, because that is all the elected officials there, and asking them their opinion on what they thought. And at that point, they voted for me to submit a minimum, midpoint, and max to them, as well as this committee. And that was what Rick had recommended anyway. So wanting to know from you all if that's what you would like for me to take all the things that we have changed, update it, and bring that back with those 3 columns so you can see what that looks like.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Discussion. Commissioner Val.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Denver. I think HR has really done a good job with packaging all this. I want to thank the HR committee for the work they did. And here's what I really like about it. We've all said in these meetings before and discussed the issue of department heads or elected officials. They can do what they want. But I love the fact that department heads serving on the HR committee all voted, and I think you said unanimously, to accept this. So that leads me to believe that they are in favor of all this and these changes. So
Yes, sir.
getting them all on the same page, saying here's a plan and we're going to go by this, I love that idea. A lot of unity, a lot of continuity within the county. I like that. I would point out to the committee, we haven't gotten to the money part yet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? So all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank y'all.
We've had a gentleman waiting back here in the back for an hour now. Maybe we could get Mr. McCamey to come up? Or maybe we could get the mayor to come up?
Well, you have in your packet a letter from Faith Promise Church, and to give you a little background, back when there was publicity about the issues with the current building, they were already in discussions about moving their church because they did not have enough room, enough space. They reached out to me at that point in time about willing to sell it to the county for low cost in order to be a true community partner. I could not bring that to you because at that point it was still confidential that they were moving and they wanted to keep that under wraps. Also at the time we had on the table, you all had authorized us to make a $300,000 offer on the facility up at exit 322. And at that point in time, I told them, you know, we're still waiting to hear on that. We appreciate the generosity of the offer, but we're still waiting to hear on that. Well, that did not materialize. There was not acceptance up the ladder on the $300,000 building at 322. And so as we were going through the process of selling the existing site, we reached back out to Faith Promise to see, because they had gone to market on this, if that offer would still stand. We met them on site, we had a meeting, and they said they would still accept that. And I explained to them we would have to go public with it at that point, which could hurt their efforts to sell the building at a higher cost. But they understood that, and they authorized the letter. They had a board meeting and authorized this letter. So that's what's in your packet. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with that property in Mariners Point. It is valuable property. It's a great location. I think it addresses some of the concerns that were raised about moving the facility up, you know, to the north end. And so Commissioner McCamey reached out to Scott Gibson about a capital outlay note. Cherie has been in fundraising mode, and Cherie, if you want to let them know how much you've raised so far in pledges and commitments.
$39,800.
Good job.
It's been about 3 weeks.
So anyhow, we're presenting this as an option for the county for the senior program. If you look at what we're paying now, we're paying $21,600 a year in rent. So if you carried that out to the same 10-year financing, that would be $216,000, but you have nothing left to show for it. It's just rent. And for another investment of $284,000, you would actually own a building. The one thing I think that is great about that particular location is it would be an asset for the county. It is in a high, well, I'll give you an example. If you look back before we made the first purchase, we did discuss purchasing the property that was in front of Faith Promise. At that time, it was $240,000, I believe. Is that right? They have more than doubled their request on that property now because you've had some interest from folks like Publix and other retail outlets that have looked at that property. So that is a benefit to the county. If it ever ceased to be a senior center, we would have something of value on the books to be able to either sell or turn around and use for another purpose.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chuck.
If you look at on the paper here, you know, they said it appraised at $780,000 in 2013. Of course, you know, that was 6 years ago, so that's even higher than that. And then he said since then, they added another almost 3 acres of land, so, that's gonna be even more, cost, there. So, you're getting, for 500,000, gosh, it's getting you almost probably close to, I'd say this day and age, probably close to, they're close to $1 million.
The property assessor actually has it on his sheets there as $1 million that's in your packet there.
So it's almost, savings half of what it's cost. And my biggest concern earlier at the other location is it's taking, like the Oliver Springs, Lake Oak Ridge, and my district, Claxton, totally out of the picture because, people trying to get to the far end of it. And this way to staying centrally located, because when I came in from Oak Ridge to here, when I got to Mariners Point, I started measuring, how far was it from the other location. And it's less than 2.5 miles from the existing location. And it being right there on the main road, so it's perfect 4-lane roads. And so, I mean, it's an ideal location. And I've been there with my kids numerous times trick-or-treating, so I've been inside that building. I know what the building is like. And of course, I don't want to make another mistake, but we definitely would want to have an independent appraisal or assessment.
And I would be happy to take responsibility for that.
And but I think this is an opportunity, especially with Chris Stevens is offering it to the county like they are, to pass up. And I'd like to see this commission to act on it.
Do we want a motion on this before we discuss it, or we want to discuss it? What do y'all want to do? Mr. Meredith, did you ask?
Comment.
Do we want to make a motion before we go to comments? Mr. Meredith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've shared this with the mayor. 2 weeks ago, Clinton City Council made a motion to bring to this commission the request to get the armory back for $1 a year. I'm not going to speak for Mayor Burton. He will be here Monday night at Operations Committee to share with this commission's proposal. Sure, there's ups and downs. I'm not totally against this, but I do think it might be fair to hear what they have to say. And it probably is an apple and orange as far as difference. But I think since the council's voted, we at least need to hear the mayor. He could not come to this meeting, but so now he's on the operations agenda Monday night. But I do think it will be somewhat of an attractive offer.
Okay.
That's all. I just not against this, but I think we need to not get in a hurry and have all options on the table.
Other comments? Commissioner Val.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Rick. I wanted to hear what Clinton was going to offer us. I totally agree they need another building.
Right, no doubt.
Hopefully that debate isn't going to come up again, the need for another building. Where it is now, I think, becomes the debate. I got a phone call, a voicemail from a constituent who was upset that we were even considering this piece of property. So I would like an opportunity to call that constituent and maybe talk to a few others and get the feel for what people in my district are thinking about this. There's only one, so I at least want an opportunity to call her back. So I think waiting and hearing Clinton's offer and giving me time to talk to some folks up in the 4th District would be beneficial.
Mr. Smallridge, you got a comment? Mr. Meredith?
Just one final thing. I think it's November 30th in the letter, right, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so.
Do I have a comment?
Please.
Well, of course I do. I think it's it is an attractive piece of property. I think we should listen to the city of Clinton. I'm not willing to make a knee-jerk reaction. We've seen how that ran the last time. In fact, I would like to speak to not only some of the residents in Mariners Point to see what their input is, but I think that moving it from the center of Clinton further out towards the city of Oak Ridge would be a mistake, because you're not able to reach the people that it really matters to. The folks in the city of Oak Ridge just got a new senior center. They're not going to drive from Oak Ridge to Mariners Point to utilize a county facility when it's the people in the county that need that. So that's just my 2 cents for now.
Commissioner Denenberg.
I agree with Commissioner Scott on several points. This is a very generous offer, and I certainly thank them for the consideration they're giving the county. I'm still wanting to finalize whatever we're going to eventually do on 205 Main before we go forward, knowing what we would need to do with any monies that we would realize if we do end up selling it. And I don't think that that is a dead issue. And if this is not a time-sensitive thing, I would certainly like to hear from the city of Clinton as well. And if this can be put off until after that, I would certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Waddell.
I'd like to wait. I'd definitely like to hear what Clinton has to say. And like I said, we've still got a building we got to figure out what we're going to do with. So I think those are all important things. But it is an attractive offer, but we've got too many other things to finalize first.
With that being said, I'd like to see us, I'd maybe entertain a motion to wait.
I'll make a motion to defer for 30 days to allow.
I got a motion to defer any judgment on this for 30 days. Got a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll expect to hear from you again.
Okay, I will be back.
And I'm hoping that concludes our meeting. What you got else?
He was saying you're the chicken.
Then we're done.
I believe that's called adjourn.